The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 12 different species gathered around the crystalline table. Admiral Zexthul of the Vorthon Empire clicked his mandibles impatiently, his forearms folded across his chitinous chest. The emergency session had been called after disturbing reports reached the Outer Rim territories. "The humans have expanded again," announced Counselor Miratal, her translucent blue skin shimmering with anxiety. 3 more systems in the past solar cycle. Their rate of colonization is unprecedented. General Korthax, a towering reptilian from the Saurian Confederacy, slammed his scaled fist on the table. "Impossible. Our intelligence reports indicated they barely achieved faster-than-light travel 50 of their years ago. No species expands that rapidly. Yet here we are," Admiral Zexthul replied, his compound eyes reflecting the holographic star maps floating above them. "These humans emerged from their single world and somehow established colonies across 17 systems. Their technology appears crude, their ships look like flying scrap metal, yet they succeed where others fail." The ethereal ambassador Lixandra floated silently above her designated space, her energy form pulsing with concern. "Perhaps we underestimated their capabilities. Our initial scouts reported they had only achieved nuclear fusion in basic spaceflight. How did they advance so quickly?" "They didn't advance," corrected Dr. Velkin, the chief xenobiologist whose gray matter pulsed behind his transparent skull. "Our analysis shows their technology remains relatively primitive. They still use chemical propulsion for short-range transport, and their computers are barely quantum capable. Yet somehow they make it work." Captain Joranth of the Celestial Navy leaned forward, his crystalline features catching the chamber's light. "My scouts report their colonies are thriving despite lacking proper atmospheric processors. They terraform using crude methods that should take centuries, not decades. It makes no sense. What troubles me most," Admiral Zexthul continued, "is their apparent disregard for established galactic protocols. They ignore our warnings about dangerous sectors, venture into systems we've marked as uninhabitable, and somehow not only survive but establish permanent settlements." The council members exchanged uneasy glances. For millennia, they had maintained order in their region of the galaxy through careful expansion, advanced technology, and diplomatic agreements. Each species had found their niche, their perfect worlds, their ideal conditions. The humans seemed to ignore all such considerations. "Their biology is peculiar," Dr. Velkin added, consulting his datapad. "They evolved on a death world, a planet with wildly fluctuating weather patterns, dangerous predators, and geological instability. Most sapient species develop on stable, predictable worlds. These humans adapted to chaos." Counselor Miratal's skin color shifted to a deeper blue, indicating deep thought. "Could their chaotic origin explain their unconventional approach? Our expansion models assume logical, calculated colonization based on resource availability and environmental compatibility." "Exactly," General Korthax interjected. "We select worlds that match our biological needs, establish supply lines, ensure technological superiority over local conditions. The humans seem to pick planets at random and somehow make them work." Admiral Zexthul activated another hologram, showing recent surveillance footage from human colonies. "Look at this footage from their settlement on Kepler 442b. The planet has 30-hour day cycles, gravity twice their homeworld standard, and an atmosphere requiring constant filtration. According to our models, establishing a colony there should be impossible without terraforming technology we know they don't possess." The footage showed humans working in what appeared to be simple environmental suits, constructing buildings using locally sourced materials, and operating machinery that looked cobbled together from various components. Children played in dome-covered areas while adults tended to agricultural plots that shouldn't have been able to sustain Earth-based crops. "They're using improvised solutions," observed Captain Joranth. "Those aren't standard atmospheric processors. They've modified mining equipment and irrigation systems to create breathable environments. It's innovative, if inefficient. Inefficient yet effective," Dr. Velkin noted. "Their survival rate on hostile worlds exceeds our most optimistic projections. They lose more colonists than we would consider acceptable. Yet they continue to grow and expand." The ethereal ambassador finally spoke, her voice resonating directly in their minds. "Perhaps we should consider direct contact. Our current policy of observation may be insufficient if they continue expanding at this rate." "Absolutely not," General Korthax responded immediately. First contact protocols exist for good reason. We need to understand their capabilities and intentions before revealing ourselves. For all we know, they could be a warrior species planning aggressive expansion. Admiral Zexthul considered this possibility. Their expansion does seem unusually rapid and aggressive. Most species take millennia to spread across multiple star systems. The humans accomplished this in mere decades. But they show no signs of military buildup, Counselor Miratal pointed out. Their ships are poorly armed. Their colonies have minimal defensive capabilities. If they're warriors, they're remarkably unprepared for conflict. That could be misdirection, suggested Captain Joranth. Advanced species often hide their true military capabilities until needed. Dr. Velkin pulled up additional data. Biological analysis suggests they're primarily cooperative rather than aggressive. Their social structures emphasize group survival and mutual aid. However, they also display remarkable adaptability under stress. Adaptability that allows them to thrive where others would perish. Admiral Zexthul mused. Perhaps that's what we're witnessing. Not advanced technology or superior planning, but pure adaptability. The Council fell silent as they contemplated this assessment. Each of their species had achieved spaceflight through technological mastery, careful planning, and optimization of their natural advantages. The humans seemed to succeed through sheer stubborn persistence and creative problem-solving. I recommend continued observation, Admiral Zexthul finally declared, but we should increase surveillance and prepare contingency plans. If these humans continue expanding, they'll eventually encounter one of our established territories. Agreed, chorused the other council members. As the session concluded, none of them could predict that their first real contact with humanity would come sooner than expected, under circumstances that would forever change their understanding of what it meant to be human. The galaxy was about to witness something unprecedented in its long history, the true measure of human determination when everything was on the line. Lieutenant Sarah Chen piloted her reconnaissance ship through the asteroid field with practiced ease, her hands steady on the controls despite the proximity alerts constantly chirping around her. The UES Wanderer wasn't much to look at. A patchwork of salvaged hull plating, retrofitted engines from 3 different manufacturers, and sensors cobbled together from mining equipment. But it was hers, and more importantly, it worked. Wanderer to Colony Base, I'm reading some unusual energy signatures in Sector 7, Sarah reported into her comm system. Might be worth investigating for mineral deposits. The response crackled through her speakers. Copy that, Wanderer. Be advised, we've lost contact with the automated probe in that sector. Could be equipment failure, but stay alert, Sarah frowned. Equipment failures were common enough in their jury-rigged systems, but losing complete contact was unusual. She adjusted course toward the last known position of the probe, weaving between chunks of asteroid debris that would have challenged pilots from more advanced civilizations. As she approached the coordinates, her improvised sensors began picking up something that made her heart skip. The energy readings weren't from mineral deposits, they were too organized, too purposeful. Ship signatures. Colony Base, I'm reading multiple vessel signatures. Configuration unknown. They're big. Before the colony could respond, Sarah's proximity alarm screamed. 3 massive ships materialized from behind a large asteroid, their hulls gleaming with technological sophistication that made her own vessel look like a child's toy. The ships were easily 10 times the size of anything humanity had ever built, with smooth curves and energy fields that distorted space around them. Unknown vessel. You have entered Vorthon territorial space, came a transmission in perfect English, though Sarah could detect the artificial tone of a universal translator. Identify yourself and state your intentions. Sarah's training kicked in. She'd been a fighter pilot before volunteering for the colony program, and while the Wanderer wasn't armed for combat, she understood threat assessment. These ships could vaporize her without effort. This is Lieutenant Sarah Chen of the United Earth Colonial Survey. I'm conducting routine reconnaissance for mining operations. I was unaware this area was claimed territory. The lead alien ship moved closer, and Sarah could see details that confirmed her worst fears. The hull wasn't just large, it was covered in weapon emplacements that could reduce her entire colony to ash. More concerning, she could see similar ships appearing on her long-range sensors. Lots of them. Human vessel, you will accompany us to our command ship for interrogation. Any attempt to flee or communicate with your base will result in immediate destruction. Sarah's mind raced. The colony had maybe 3,000 people, including families with children. Their defensive capabilities consisted of mining charges and a handful of personal weapons. If these aliens decided humanity was a threat, it would be a massacre. Understood, she replied, keeping her voice steady. I'm adjusting course to follow your lead ship. As the Vorton vessels escorted her toward their massive command dreadnought, Sarah discreetly activated her ship's passive recording systems. If she didn't make it back, at least the colony would have some warning about what they were facing. The docking bay of the alien ship was larger than her entire colony's main building. As the Wanderer settled onto the deck, Sarah could see dozens of smaller craft arranged in perfect formations. Everything about the aliens screamed military precision and technological superiority. 2 guards met her at the airlock. Tall insectoid beings with 4 arms and compound eyes that seemed to take in every detail. Their armor looked more advanced than anything in Earth's military databases, and their weapons hummed with contained energy. You will come with us, one of them stated, the translation arriving with the same artificial tone as before. They led her through corridors that spoke of centuries of technological refinement. The walls seemed to pulse with integrated systems, and gravity remained perfectly consistent despite the ship's size. Sarah found herself in what was clearly an interrogation chamber, facing a being that could only be a high-ranking officer. Admiral Zexthul studied the human with all 4 of his compound eyes. She was smaller than he'd expected, fragile-looking compared to the robust forms of most spacefaring species. Her equipment was laughably primitive, her ship held together with what appeared to be welded patches and hope. I am Admiral Zexthul of the Vorthon Empire, he announced. You are the first human we have encountered directly. Your species has been noticed by the Galactic community. Sarah kept her expression neutral. I'm honored to make first contact, Admiral. I hope we can establish friendly relations. That remains to be determined, Zexthul replied, his mandibles clicking. Your species' rapid expansion has caused concern among established civilizations. We need to understand your intentions and capabilities. Our intentions are peaceful exploration and colonization, Sarah responded honestly. We're looking for new homes, new resources, new knowledge. We mean no harm to existing civilizations. Yet you expand aggressively into territories others have avoided for good reason. Our scouts report human colonies on worlds that should be uninhabitable for your species. How do you explain this? Sarah almost smiled. Admiral, with respect, you might not understand human nature. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. Extreme weather, predators, natural disasters, diseases. Our entire evolution was about surviving the impossible. A world with bad air or high gravity? That's just Tuesday for us. Zexthul's compound eyes reflected confusion. Your homeworld is classified as habitable in our databases. Habitable maybe, but barely, Sarah said. Earth has hurricanes that can level cities, earthquakes that reshape continents, volcanoes that can change global climate, and that's just the geology. Don't get me started on the biology. We shared our world with everything from microscopic killers to massive predators. We learned to adapt or die. The Admiral processed this information. So your expansion is not driven by superior technology, but by your ability to survive in hostile conditions? Exactly. We don't need perfect worlds, Admiral. We just need worlds we can make work. And humans are really, really good at making things work. For the first time in the conversation, Admiral Zexthul felt a flutter of uncertainty. The human spoke of adaptation and survival with a casual confidence that was deeply unsettling. Her species didn't expand because they had better ships or stronger weapons. They expanded because they refused to accept that any environment was truly uninhabitable. There is another matter, Zexthul continued. Your colony is in violation of territorial agreements established long before your species achieved spaceflight. This region is claimed by the Krillian Horde. Sarah's blood chilled. The Krillian Horde? Aggressive expansionists who view any encroachment as an act of war. They are already en route to your colony. Our estimates suggest they will arrive within 2 of your planetary rotations. The weight of impending disaster settled on Sarah's shoulders. How many ships? Approximately 50 combat vessels. Your colony's defensive capabilities are insufficient. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of the families back on the colony. The children playing in the dome gardens. The farmers tending crops that shouldn't grow in alien soil but did anyway because humans made them work. When she opened her eyes, Admiral Zexthul saw something that made his carapace tingle with unease. The human's expression had changed, hardened into something that spoke of deep primal determination. "Admiral," Sarah said quietly, "I need to get back to my colony. My people need to know what's coming. Even if we permit your return, there is little you can do. The Krillian horde has never been defeated in battle. Your people should consider evacuation." Sarah stood up, her small frame somehow radiating an intensity that made the massive alien step back slightly. "Admiral, you don't understand humans at all. We don't run from fights we can't win. We figure out how to win them anyway." Sarah's return to Haven Colony was met with controlled chaos. Within hours of her report, every able-bodied adult was involved in preparations that would have seemed insane to most galactic civilizations, but felt perfectly natural to humans facing impossible odds. Commander Rodriguez, the colony's military liaison, stood before a hastily assembled crowd in the main dome. His weathered face carried the weight of command decisions that could save or doom 3,000 souls. "All right, people, here's what we know," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the crowd. "We've got approximately 36 hours before hostile contact. The enemy force consists of 50 combat vessels with technology significantly more advanced than ours. By any reasonable military assessment, we should evacuate immediately." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, but Rodriguez held up his hand. "However, evacuation isn't an option. We have 3 transport ships capable of carrying maybe 200 people each. And that's if we strip out all safety margins. We can't run and we sure as hell can't hide. So we're going to do what humans do best. We're going to fight smart." Dr. Kim Yates, the colony's chief engineer, stepped forward. "I've been analyzing Lieutenant Chen's recordings of the alien technology. Their ships are massive, heavily armed, and designed for conventional space warfare, but they're also built for fighting other advanced civilizations with similar tactics." "Meaning?" asked Martinez, the head of mining operations. "Meaning they're not prepared for guerrilla warfare," Rodriguez answered. "Their ships are designed to engage targets that fight like them. Big ships, long-range weapons, formal battle lines. We're going to give them something completely different." Sarah, now serving as tactical advisor despite her exhaustion, activated a holographic display showing the colony's layout. The aliens, the Vorthan Empire, seemed genuinely confused by our expansion methods. They can't understand how we make things work with primitive technology. "That's going to be our advantage. How so?" asked Collins, the agricultural coordinator. "Because they think in terms of advanced integrated systems," Sarah explained. "When we jury-rig solutions, when we improvise and adapt, we're doing something their minds aren't wired to expect or counter." Dr. Yates pulled up schematics on her tablet. "The mining equipment we use to extract lithium and rare metals? With some modifications. Those excavators become mobile artillery platforms. The fusion reactors powering our domes? Overload them properly and they become ship killers." "You're talking about turning our entire colony into a weapon," observed Dr. Park, the colony's medical officer. "That's exactly what we're talking about," Rodriguez confirmed. "Every piece of equipment, every building, every system becomes part of our defense. But more than that, we're going to use the one thing no advanced civilization ever seems to account for." "Which is?" several voices asked simultaneously. Sarah smiled grimly. "Human unpredictability." Over the next 24 hours, Haven Colony transformed itself in ways that would have amazed and terrified galactic observers. Mining robots were retrofitted with explosive charges and programmed for kamikaze attacks. Atmospheric processors were modified to create dense fog banks that would confuse enemy sensors. Agricultural domes became concealed weapons platforms. Tommy Liu, barely 18 and fresh out of engineering school, worked alongside 60-year-old veteran mechanic Bill Stevens to convert construction vehicles into mobile missile launchers. "This is crazy," Tommy muttered as they welded armor plating salvaged from ship hulls onto a mining truck. "We're basically making weapons out of farming equipment." "Kid," Bill said, not pausing in his work. "My grandfather fought in Afghanistan with equipment that was already obsolete. My father defended lunar installations during the resource wars with mining lasers and improvised explosives. Making do with what you have isn't crazy, it's human." Across the colony, similar scenes played out. Children too young to fight were assigned to communication and logistics roles, coordinating the complex web of improvised defenses. Farmers turned their botanical knowledge toward creating smokescreens and concealment. Teachers became tactical coordinators, their organizational skills crucial for managing the chaotic defense preparations. Maria Santos, the colony's psychologist, found herself planning psychological warfare tactics. The enemy expects conventional resistance, she explained to a group of volunteers. They're prepared for military formations, standard defensive positions, logical tactical responses. They're not prepared for humans who refuse to follow the rules of engagement. As the deadline approached, Admiral Zexthul watched from orbit with a growing sense of unease. His long-range sensors showed the Krillian horde approaching on schedule, their 50 warships representing overwhelming force against the tiny human settlement. He had hoped the humans would accept his offer of limited evacuation, but instead his sensors detected frantic activity throughout the colony. What are they doing down there? He wondered aloud to his tactical officer. Unknown, Admiral. Energy signatures are fluctuating wildly. Their fusion reactors are showing irregular patterns, and there's significant movement of heavy machinery. Are they attempting to build defensive installations? Negative, sir. The patterns don't match any known defensive construction. If anything, they appear to be randomizing their infrastructure. Admiral Zexthul's mandibles clicked with confusion. Randomizing infrastructure made no tactical sense. Effective defense required organized positions, clear fields of fire, logical supply lines. The humans seemed to be deliberately destroying their own operational efficiency. On Haven Colony, Sarah stood in the colony's makeshift command center, a converted cafeteria filled with mismatched computers, mining equipment displays, and communication gear that looked like it had been assembled by particularly creative scavengers. Final status report, Commander Rodriguez called out. Agricultural sector ready, reported Collins. We've got concealed launcher positions in all major domes plus smoke generation capability. Mining operations standing by, Martinez added. Mobile units are armed and dispersed. We've got surprises buried throughout the mining zones. Engineering reports all fusion plants can be overloaded on command, Dr. Yates confirmed. Plus, we've got the special project ready for deployment. Rodriguez nodded grimly. Remember, people, we're not trying to win a conventional battle. We're trying to survive long enough to show these aliens that attacking humans comes with a cost they weren't expecting. Sarah checked her personal sidearm, a modified mining tool that could punch through ship hull plating, and looked around at the faces surrounding her. Scared faces, determined faces, faces that belonged to farmers and engineers and teachers who had never expected to become warriors. They're coming, announced the communications officer. Long-range sensors detect the enemy fleet dropping out of hyperspace. Through the dome's transparent aluminum windows, they could see stars beginning to be blocked out by massive shapes. 50 warships capable of reducing entire worlds to rubble were settling into attack formation above their tiny colony. In the command center of the lead Krillian vessel, war leader Graktal studied the scans of the human settlement below. His species had conquered dozens of worlds, eliminating resistance with overwhelming technological superiority. This should be a simple matter of demonstrating power and claiming territory. Begin bombardment of military installations, he commanded. War leader, his tactical officer reported, we're having difficulty identifying military targets. The settlement appears to be entirely civilian infrastructure. Then target the largest buildings. Fear will drive them to surrender. But as the first energy beams lanced down toward Haven Colony, something unprecedented in galactic warfare was about to unfold. The Krillian horde was about to discover that humans didn't just fight to win. They fought to teach their enemies that some costs were too high to pay. The first Krillian energy beam struck Haven Colony's outer perimeter, vaporizing 3 storage buildings and scorching the ground where vegetables had grown just hours before. The colonists felt the heat and shockwave even inside their protective domes. But instead of panic, there was an eerie calm. Phase 1 is working, Sarah reported from her position in the modified mining command center. They're targeting exactly what we expected. The biggest, most obvious structures. Commander Rodriguez watched the tactical display showing enemy beam patterns. Dr. Yates, are you getting good readings on their weapon signatures? Affirmative, came the reply from the engineering station. Their energy output is consistent with our projections. The adaptive shielding protocols are loading into our mobile units now. War leader Graktal observed the destruction from his command deck with satisfaction. The humans had built their settlement in typical primitive fashion. Large, obvious targets that were easy to eliminate. A few more bombardments would force their surrender. "Cease fire," he commanded. "Transmit surrender demands." The message that reached Haven Colony was standard Krillian protocol: immediate evacuation, abandonment of all claims to the system, and payment of tribute for trespassing in Horde territory. Rodriguez activated the colony's main communications array. "This is Commander Rodriguez of Haven Colony. We reject your demands. This system is claimed under United Earth Colonial Charter, and we're prepared to defend it." Graktal's translator made harsh sounds that his species used for laughter. "Primitive beings, you have no weapons capable of harming our vessels. Surrender now, or face complete annihilation." "War leader," interrupted his tactical officer, "we're detecting energy buildups throughout the human settlement. It appears they're attempting to power some kind of defensive systems." "Impossible. Our scans show no military installations." But even as he spoke, the first surprise erupted from what had appeared to be an agricultural dome. A modified mining laser, powered by the dome's fusion reactor and focused through hastily installed mirrors, lanced upward with enough energy to punch through the shields of a Krillian frigate. The beam struck the vessel's hull, carving through armor plating that was supposed to be impervious to primitive weapons. "Report," Graktal roared as alarms began sounding throughout his fleet. "Frigate 12 reports hull breach. The humans somehow created a directed energy weapon using agricultural equipment." Before Graktal could respond, more beams erupted from the colony. What had looked like storage buildings revealed themselves as concealed weapons platforms. Mining equipment emerged from camouflaged positions, launching projectiles that were nothing more than refined ore, accelerated to significant fractions of light speed by magnetic launchers designed for moving asteroid materials. "This is impossible," Graktal muttered, watching his fleet's tactical display light up with damage reports. "They're using mining equipment as weapons." "War leader, we're detecting multiple fusion reactor overloads throughout the settlement. Energy readings are off the scale." Sarah crouched behind the controls of what had been a lithium extraction robot 12 hours earlier. She'd helped convert it into a mobile missile launcher by the simple expedient of loading its sample containers with improvised explosives and using its sample firing mechanism as a delivery. "System. Target acquired," she called out, tracking one of the smaller Krillian vessels through her improvised targeting system. "Firing." The robot's sample launcher hurled a container packed with mining explosives and metal fragments toward the enemy ship. The Krillians' point defense systems easily intercepted it, but the explosion created a cloud of metallic debris that interfered with their sensors. All across Haven Colony, similar improvised weapons opened fire. Agricultural robots became mobile artillery. Construction equipment fired building materials at orbital targets. The colony's 3 small transport ships, hastily armed with every weapon the colonists could fabricate, launched from concealed positions in mining pits. Admiral Zexthul watched the battle unfold from his observation position with a mixture of fascination and horror. The humans weren't fighting a conventional battle. They were improvising warfare on a scale he'd never witnessed. "How are they generating that much firepower?" his tactical officer asked. "Their technology shouldn't be capable of threatening Krillian vessels." "They're not using advanced technology," Zexthul realized. "They're using basic technology in ways no one anticipated. Look at that energy beam. It's nothing more than an industrial laser amplified through multiple focusing arrays." On Haven Colony, Dr. Yates was coordinating the colony's most desperate gambit. "Fusion Plant 3 is approaching critical mass," she reported. "Evacuating Sector 7. The colonists had realized they couldn't match Krillian firepower, so they decided to turn their own infrastructure into weapons. The fusion reactors that powered their domes could be overloaded to create massive energy releases. Mining charges could be detonated in precise sequences to launch debris clouds. Even their waste processing systems had been weaponized to create chemical interference with enemy sensors. "This is madness," War leader Graktal declared as another of his frigates reported significant damage from what appeared to be construction equipment. "They're destroying their own colony to fight us." "Orders, war leader?" Graktal faced a tactical situation unlike anything in Krillian military doctrine. Standard procedure was to crush resistance with overwhelming force. But the humans weren't presenting conventional targets. Every time his ships destroyed a building, it exploded in ways that damaged his vessels. Every piece of equipment they targeted revealed itself to be a weapon in disguise. "Concentrate fire on their power generation facilities," he ordered. "Without energy, their improvised weapons will fail." But as Krillian beams targeted the fusion plants, the humans implemented their most desperate strategy. Instead of trying to protect their reactors, they began deliberately overloading them. The first fusion plant detonation lit up the night sky like a miniature sun. The explosion took out 2 Krillian fighters that had moved in too close, and the electromagnetic pulse disrupted the electronics of several more vessels. "They're turning their power plants into bombs," Kraktal's tactical officer reported in disbelief. Sarah felt the heat wash over her position as Fusion Plant 2 exploded, taking another chunk out of the Krillian formation. The colony was destroying itself, but it was taking the enemy with it. "This is insane," she muttered, but there was pride in her voice. "Completely, utterly insane." "Tommy Lou to command," came a young voice over the communication system. "I'm in position with the special package." Sarah looked at Commander Rodriguez, who nodded grimly. Tommy was piloting one of their transport ships, but it was no longer intended for transport. They'd loaded it with every explosive device the colony could manufacture and set it on a collision course with the Krillian command ship. "Tommy, you don't have to do this," Rodriguez said into his communicator. "Actually, sir, I do. My little sister is in Dome 4. My parents are in the medical center. This is my home and nobody gets to take it from me." Through the chaos of battle, Admiral Zexthul watched as a small human transport ship accelerated directly toward the massive Krillian dreadnought. The vessel was tiny compared to the warship, barely a speck against its hull, but it was moving fast and its energy signature suggested it was carrying enough explosives to damage even that massive vessel. "The humans are conducting suicide attacks," his tactical officer observed. "No," Zexthul corrected, his understanding of humanity crystallizing. "They're conducting sacrifice attacks. There's a difference." As Tommy Lou's ship struck the Krillian command vessel and exploded in a ball of fire that sent shockwaves through the entire enemy fleet, Admiral Zexthul finally understood what made humans so dangerous. They didn't fight to win. They fought to protect what they loved, and there was no force in the galaxy more devastating than that kind of determination. Tommy Lou's sacrifice had damaged the Krillian command ship, but war leader Graktal was far from defeated. If anything, the loss of 3 frigates and damage to his dreadnought had enraged him beyond rational thought. "All ships, converge on the settlement," he commanded, his voice carrying the fury of a predator that had been wounded by what he considered prey. "I want every structure vaporized, every human eliminated. Make an example that will be remembered across the galaxy." Down on Haven Colony, the surviving defenders watched as the entire enemy fleet began descending toward their positions. The improvised weapons that had given them early success were running out of ammunition. Their fusion plants were either destroyed or critically damaged, and they had lost nearly half their fighting force. "Well," Commander Rodriguez said grimly, "we always knew this was a one-way trip." Sarah checked her remaining equipment, a mining tool converted to a weapon, 2 makeshift grenades, and her grandfather's service pistol that she'd carried as a good luck charm. Around her, the other survivors were making similar inventory checks. "Sir," called out Dr. Park from the medical station, "we've got wounded who can't be moved, and about 200 civilians in the deepest shelters." Rodriguez nodded. "Then we make our last stand count. Every minute we keep their attention gives the kids and families a little more time." But as the Krillian ships descended to low altitude for close-range bombardment, something unexpected happened. Energy beams began striking the enemy vessels from above, not from the colony, but from space. Admiral Zexthul's voice crackled over the emergency communications frequency. "This is Admiral Zexthul of the Vorthon Empire to all vessels. Cease hostilities immediately. This system is now under Galactic Council protection." War leader Graktal's response was immediate and furious. "Vorthon coward, this is not your concern. The humans violated our territorial claims. The territorial claims of the Krillian horde are not recognized by the Galactic Council," Zexthul replied as his ships moved into firing positions. "More importantly, what we have witnessed here today changes everything about how we understand this species." From her position behind the remains of an agricultural processor, Sarah watched in amazement as sleek Vorthon ships engaged the Krillian fleet above them. The technology gap between the two alien forces was obvious, both far more advanced than anything humanity possessed, but the Vorthans seemed to have the advantage. "I don't understand," she called out to Rodriguez. "Why are they helping us?" Before the commander could answer, Admiral Zexthol's voice came through on the general frequency again, but this time he was addressing the human colony directly. "Commander Rodriguez, this is Admiral Zexthol. We have been observing your defense of this colony. What you have accomplished here today, it defies everything we thought we knew about warfare, about survival, about what it means to fight for something greater than yourself." Rodriguez activated his communicator. "Admiral, we appreciate the assistance, but we're not sure what you mean. Commander, in all our centuries of spaceflight, we have never witnessed a species turn civilian infrastructure into effective military weapons through pure ingenuity. We have never seen a people willing to sacrifice their entire settlement rather than surrender. We have never observed individuals voluntarily flying suicide missions not out of fanaticism, but out of love for their families." As the battle raged above them, more ships began arriving. Sarah's sensors picked up at least a dozen different energy signatures, multiple species responding to some kind of galactic alert. "What's happening up there?" Dr. Yates asked from her position near the wrecked communication array. The answer came from Captain Joranth of the Celestial Navy, his crystalline voice somehow conveying wonder despite the alien translation system. "We came to observe first contact protocols. Instead, we witnessed the most extraordinary display of adaptive warfare in recorded galactic history." Through the chaos of the space battle above, more alien voices joined the communication frequency. Dr. Velkin's synthetic tones carried scientific fascination. The humans converted a lithium mining operation into a directed energy weapon, using principles we never considered. They turned architectural domes into weapons platforms. They made their own power plants into strategic explosives. Counselor Miratal's voice resonated with something that might have been respect. Most species surrender when faced with overwhelming force. These humans chose to show their attackers that destroying them would carry a cost beyond mere material loss. War leader Graktal found himself fighting not just the Vorthans, but a coalition of galactic species that had apparently decided to intervene. His tactical displays showed ships from half a dozen civilizations converging on his position. "This is impossible," he roared. "They're protecting a primitive species that has no standing in galactic affairs." "On the contrary," came the ethereal voice of Ambassador Lixandra. "They have just earned their standing through combat. What we witnessed today was not primitive warfare. It was evolutionary warfare." Down on the colony surface, Sarah helped Dr. Park tend to the wounded while listening to the alien voices discussing humanity's actions with what sounded like academic fascination, mixed with genuine awe. "They speak about us like we're some kind of fascinating specimen," she muttered. Rodriguez overheard her comment. "Maybe we are. Think about it, Sarah. We just held off an advanced alien fleet using mining equipment and farm tools. When was the last time anything in the galaxy surprised these species?" The space battle above reached its conclusion as war leader Graktal found his fleet surrounded and outgunned. The Krillian horde had built their reputation on overwhelming technologically inferior species, but they had never faced a coalition of equals defending what they saw as a valuable new member of the galactic community. "Krillian vessels, you will withdraw immediately or face the combined response of the Galactic Council." Admiral Zexthol's voice carried absolute authority. After a tense moment, Graktal's ships began withdrawing from the system, but his parting transmission carried a warning that would echo through galactic politics for years to come. "You protect them now, but these humans are dangerous. Their methods of warfare violate every convention of civilized conflict. Mark my words, they will become a threat to all established order." As the enemy fleet disappeared into hyperspace, an unusual quiet settled over Haven Colony. The survivors emerged from their shelters and defensive positions, looking up at a sky filled with alien ships that had chosen to protect rather than conquer them. Admiral Zexthol's voice came through the communications array one final time. "Commander Rodriguez, the Galactic Council formally requests diplomatic contact with your species. What you have demonstrated today, your adaptability, your refusal to surrender, your willingness to sacrifice for principles greater than individual survival. These are qualities the galaxy has been lacking. Rodriguez looked around at his battered colony, at the improvised weapons still smoking from battle, at the faces of colonists who had turned farmers and engineers into warriors in a single day. "Admiral," he replied, "I think you're going to find that what you witnessed today wasn't unusual human behavior. It was just Tuesday for us, and in ships throughout the gathered fleet, alien minds began to process the terrifying implications of a species for whom turning a lithium mine into a directed energy weapon was just another day at the office." 3 months after the Battle of Haven Colony, the Galactic community was still trying to understand what they had witnessed. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been extended indefinitely as representatives from dozens of species debated the implications of humanity's entrance into interstellar affairs. Admiral Zexthul stood before the assembled council, his report pad containing data that had fundamentally challenged every assumption about warfare, technology, and survival that the galaxy's civilizations had held for millennia. "Honorable delegates," he began, "our analysis of the human defense of Haven Colony has revealed capabilities that transcend conventional military doctrine. We must address not just what they did, but how their approach to problem-solving threatens our understanding of technological development itself." Councillor Miratal's skin shifted to a deep purple, indicating intense concentration. "Admiral, your preliminary report suggested the humans used improvised weapons. Surely that cannot be as significant as you claim. With respect, Councillor, you misunderstand the implications." Zexthul activated a holographic display showing footage from the battle. "Watch this sequence where they convert an agricultural dome into a directed energy weapon." The assembled delegates watched as humans dismantled farming equipment, rerouted power systems, and somehow created a laser capable of damaging military-grade ship armor, all in less than 6 hours. The modification process required no advanced materials, no sophisticated manufacturing, no computer systems beyond what they use for mining operations. Zexthul continued, "They solved a problem that our best engineers would require months to address, using resources that were literally lying around their settlement." General Korthax shifted uneasily on his platform. Surely this was luck, or perhaps desperation driving them to dangerous improvisation. "That's what we initially believed," Dr. Velkin interjected, his gray matter pulsing rapidly. "But subsequent investigation reveals this adaptability is fundamental to human development. We've discovered they regularly modify equipment for purposes completely different from its original design. They call it making do or jury rigging, and it's so common they have dozens of terms for the practice." Captain Joranth's crystalline features reflected the holographic display. "We've studied their colonial reports. They've established successful settlements on worlds we classified as uninhabitable by modifying atmospheric processors, designed for completely different environmental conditions. They took mining equipment, designed for asteroid work, and made it process atmospheric gases," Dr. Velkin added. "They used hydroponic systems designed for space stations to grow food in soil compositions that should have been toxic. In every case, they achieved success through adaptation rather than proper technology." Ambassador Lixandra's energy form pulsed with concern. "Are we suggesting their entire technological development follows this pattern?" "Exactly," Admiral Zexthul confirmed. "We've been analyzing their history. When they developed spaceflight, they didn't gradually advance through logical technological stages. They built rockets using materials and techniques adapted from completely unrelated fields. Their first lunar landing was accomplished with computing power less sophisticated than our personal communication devices." "That's impossible," General Korthax protested. "Interplanetary travel requires precise calculations, environmental controls, navigation systems, all of which they achieved through adaptation and improvisation," Zexthul interrupted. "They calculated trajectories using mathematical techniques developed for architecture. They created life support systems using modified submarine technology. They built heat shields using materials designed for industrial furnaces." The implications sank in slowly. Councillor Miratal was the first to vocalize what they were all thinking. If they can achieve advanced results through constant improvisation, then their technological development isn't limited by the same constraints that govern our advancement. "Precisely," Dr. Velkin confirmed. "Most species develop technology along predictable paths, each advancement building logically on previous achievements. requiring specific materials and manufacturing capabilities. Humans appear to achieve similar results through completely unexpected approaches. Admiral Zexthul pulled up another holographic display, this one showing human expansion patterns across their current 17-star systems. Look at their colonization strategy. They don't terraform worlds to match their biological needs. They adapt their biology and technology to match each world's conditions. Each colony shows different solutions to similar problems, Captain Joranth observed. On high-gravity worlds, they developed exoskeleton technology. On low-atmosphere planets, they created enclosed habitats. On worlds with dangerous radiation, they built underground facilities. No two colonies use the same approach. This suggests their adaptability isn't just individual creativity, Ambassador Lixandra realized. It's systematic problem-solving at a species level. The council chamber fell silent as the full implications became clear. Every galactic civilization had achieved spaceflight by mastering specific technologies, developing sophisticated manufacturing capabilities, and following logical progression paths. The humans seemed to achieve the same results by refusing to accept that problems had only one solution. There's more, Admiral Zexthul continued grimly. We've been monitoring their response to our contact. Instead of requesting technological assistance or trying to trade for advanced equipment, they've been studying our ships to understand how to adapt their own technology. Adapt our technology? General Korthax's scales bristled with alarm. Their engineers have been analyzing our engine emissions, our communications protocols, our shield harmonics, not to copy them, but to figure out how to achieve similar results using their existing capabilities. Dr. Velkin's synthetic voice carried urgent concern. Within weeks of contact, they've begun modifying their ships to incorporate principles derived from observing our vessels. Their latest transport design shows efficiency improvements that shouldn't be possible with their technology base. How? Counselor Miratal demanded. They've adapted our shield harmonics using modified mining equipment, Admiral Zexthul replied. They've improved their engine efficiency by applying observations of our propulsion systems to their fusion reactors. They're not copying our technology. They're integrating our principles into their existing systems. The terrifying realization spread through the chamber. Humanity wasn't just another species to be integrated into galactic civilization. They were a species that could take any technology, any principle, any observation, and somehow find a way to make it work with whatever materials they had available. What does this mean for galactic security? General Korthax asked the question they were all thinking. Admiral Zexthul's mandibles clicked nervously. It means we're dealing with a species that doesn't respect technological limitations. Every advancement we've made over centuries of development, they'll find ways to adapt within years. Every military advantage we possess, they'll figure out how to counter using equipment we don't even recognize as weapons. The Battle of Haven Colony was just the beginning, Captain Joranth realized. They turned farming equipment into directed energy weapons because that's how their minds work. Everything is potentially something else. Ambassador Lixandra's energy form flickered with what might have been fear. If they continue to expand, to adapt, to solve problems we consider impossible, they'll either become our greatest allies or our most dangerous enemies, Admiral Zexthul finished. And frankly, delegates, I'm not sure we'll get to choose which. As the council session continued, one fact became increasingly clear. The galaxy had welcomed a species that didn't just think outside the box. They didn't believe boxes existed in the first place. And that realization was about to change everything about how galactic civilizations approach technology, warfare, and survival itself. 1 year after first contact, Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Haven Station, watching as ships from a dozen different species docked at the facility that had grown around the original colony. The battle-scarred surface of Haven, colony below, had been transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. A joint research facility where humans worked alongside alien scientists to explore the implications of human adaptability. Dill, can't believe this is real, muttered Dr. Kim Yates, joining Sarah at the observation window. The former mining engineer now held the title of Director of Adaptive Technology Studies, a position that hadn't existed before humanity joined the galactic community. None of us can, Sarah replied, watching a Vorthan research vessel dock alongside a human transport. that looked like it had been built from spare parts, which, knowing human construction methods, it probably had been. Admiral Zexathol says we've caused more changes to galactic scientific doctrine in 1 year than most species manage in centuries. The transformation hadn't been easy. Initially, many galactic civilizations had wanted to study humans like specimens, fascinated by their ability to adapt and improvise, but treating them as curiosities rather than equals. That attitude had changed rapidly as human advisory teams began solving problems that had stumped alien scientists for decades. Dr. Velkin materialized beside them, his energy form flickering with excitement. "Sarah, we need you in Laboratory 7. The Celestial Navy brought us another impossible engineering challenge." Sarah grinned. Over the past year, she'd become something of a specialist in impossible engineering challenges. The galactic community had discovered that problems they considered unsolvable often yielded to human approaches that ignored conventional limitations. Laboratory 7 had been built specifically for human-alien collaborative research, with modular equipment that could be rapidly reconfigured for different projects. As Sarah entered, she found Captain Joranth of the Celestial Navy standing beside a holographic display showing a massive space station. "Lieutenant Chen," Joranth's crystalline voice carried frustration, "we need your perspective on this situation. Our colony ship Eternal Light has suffered catastrophic system failures while en route to the Andromeda colony. All primary life support systems are offline, backup power is failing, and we cannot reach them for rescue for at least 47 standard days." Sarah studied the schematic. The celestial ships were marvels of integrated technology, but that integration was proving to be a weakness. When one system failed, it cascaded through interconnected networks, bringing down everything else. "How many people aboard?" she asked. 50,000 colonists in stasis, plus a crew of 300 maintaining essential systems. "What resources do they have available?" Captain Joranth looked confused by the question. "Available? They have emergency supplies rated for 14 days, basic tools for minor repairs, and the functioning sections of the ship's automated systems." "No, I mean what resources?" Sarah clarified. "Forget what things are supposed to be used for. What materials, what equipment, what systems still have power?" Dr. Velkin pulled up additional schematics. "The cargo bay contains colonial equipment, atmospheric processors, hydroponic systems, construction materials. The recreational areas have entertainment systems, cooking facilities, exercise equipment. The maintenance sections have industrial fabricators, raw material stores, waste processing systems." Sarah's mind began working the problem in the way that had become familiar to her alien colleagues, treating every piece of equipment as potentially something else entirely. "Okay, here's what we're going to do," she said, pulling up a modification interface. "They're going to cannibalize their entertainment systems to create emergency power distribution networks. The cooking facilities will become chemical processing plants for creating atmospheric scrubbing compounds. The exercise equipment will be converted into manual power generation systems. That's completely outside operational parameters," Captain Joranth protested. "Those systems weren't designed for life support functions." "Captain," Dr. Yates interjected from her workstation, "that's exactly why it's going to work. Your ship's integrated systems all failed because they're connected. Sarah's approach creates independent backup systems using equipment the failure cascade couldn't reach." Over the next 6 hours, Sarah worked with the alien scientists to develop a comprehensive survival plan that would have horrified Celestial Navy engineers. They designed ways to use the ship's recreational holosystems as environmental processors, convert exercise bikes into power generators, and turn the colonial atmospheric processors into emergency life support systems. This plan violates approximately 47 safety protocols and will void our equipment warranties, Captain Joranth observed. "But it will keep your people alive," Sarah pointed out. "And honestly, Captain, after they implement these modifications, your ship will probably be more resilient than it was originally." The transmission to the Eternal Light took several hours to reach the stranded vessel, but when the response came back, it carried the unmistakable tone of hope. The celestial crew, guided by human ingenuity transmitted across light years, began implementing modifications that saved not just their mission, but introduced entirely new approaches to spacecraft design. As word of the successful rescue spread through the galactic community, Admiral Zexthol found himself fielding requests from Species across the galaxy who wanted human consultation on their impossible problems. It's remarkable, he confided to Sarah during one of their regular meetings. For centuries, we've approached technological challenges by developing better tools, more sophisticated systems, more advanced materials. You humans simply refuse to accept that limitations exist. That's not quite right, Admiral, Sarah replied. We absolutely recognize limitations. We just don't think they're permanent. The year had brought other changes as well. Human colonies were becoming centers of innovation, where alien species sent their most challenging problems. The improvised weapons that had saved Haven Colony had evolved into entirely new approaches to space combat that emphasized adaptability over raw firepower. More importantly, humanity's integration into galactic society was proceeding on terms no one had anticipated. Rather than becoming junior partners learning from advanced civilizations, humans had become the specialists called in when conventional approaches failed. There's something I need to tell you, Admiral Zexthul said, his tone carrying unusual gravity. The Galactic Council has been debating humanity's status for months. Some species want to restrict your expansion, limit your access to certain technologies, control how your adaptability spreads through galactic civilization. Sarah felt a chill, and others argue that humanity represents the next stage of galactic evolution, a species that could help us all break through technological and conceptual limitations we didn't even realize we had. What's the Council's decision? Admiral Zexthul's mandibles clicked in what Sarah had learned was the Vorthon equivalent of a smile. They've decided to let you keep being human. The galaxy, it seems, needs species that don't respect impossible. As Sarah looked out at the bustling station where humans and aliens worked together to solve problems that had never been solved before, she understood that the Battle of Haven Colony had been just the beginning. Humanity hadn't just survived first contact. They had fundamentally changed what it meant to be part of a galactic civilization. In laboratories and workshops across the galaxy, human approaches to problem-solving were being studied, adapted, and integrated into technologies that were becoming more resilient, more flexible, and more capable than anything the galaxy had seen before. The aliens had underestimated humans because they thought in terms of technological advancement and military superiority. They hadn't considered that the most dangerous species might be the one that refused to accept that any problem was truly unsolvable. And now, as human colonies spread across the galaxy, and human thinking influenced everything from spacecraft design to diplomatic protocols, the galaxy was learning what it meant to share space with a species that treated every limitation as merely another problem waiting for a creative solution. The humans had arrived, and the universe would never be quite the same.